You're probably wondering which wattage amp is best for you. Stick around and we'll find out. There are many factors involved when deciding on which wattage amp to go with. In this video, we're going to show you the differences in a 25 watt amp versus a 50 watt amp and all the way up to a 100 watt amp. Let's get started. So let's kick things off with the Mesa Boogie Badlander 25 amplifier. So some of the things that you might want to think about when you're looking at an amp of this wattage is if you're in a scenario where you have a loud drummer or you're in a band where you're not being mic'd up or not going through the PA system, you might have an issue with volume and being heard. Also, headroom may be a challenge. If you're trying to get the amp super loud and clean, smaller wattage isn't really going to do that for you. And there could be a little bit of a challenge with low end when you start to crank the amp up just because there isn't enough wattage there to push those low frequencies. But again, many great applications and uses for a 25 watt amplifier. Let's check out some sound examples. What you heard prior was me just in the crunch mode of the amplifier in channel 2. Now I'm going to play some clean stuff that's slightly pushed to the edge of breakup. An EL84 power section, 25 watts in general, great for home practice, small gigs. It's easier to drive the tube section to break up if it's a non-master volume amp. You know, these are going to be great for a little tube compression. They offer a little sag, so the feel is going to be a little bit more like a rubber band type of thing, a little bit more give and feel under the fingertips. Plus, with a smaller 25 watt amp, they're a lot easier to move around. Even in a combo version, this amp would still be relatively small. Let's move on. Okay, up next we have the Mesa Boogie Badlander 50 watt head. So some things to consider about a 50 watt amplifier. It might be a little loud at the house if it doesn't have a master volume circuit. You may want to use an attenuator with those amps. It could also be a little heavier to move around because now we've got a bigger transformer here to support that power section. But the plus side is it's now covering your home needs, small gig needs, and even those bigger gig needs where you may not be mic'd up. Featuring an EL34 power section. All right, now you've got increased headroom here, more low end, still has some sag, prominent mids thanks to those 34s. Now sometimes models of this wattage feature a half power switch like we have here, which will give you the best of both worlds because now you can do 20 watts and 50 watts. Plenty of power here for a gig, medium size, small gigs, if you got a loud drummer and you're at rehearsal and you're not being mic'd up through a PA or vice versa. And if it's a non-master volume 50 watt amp, you know, using an overdrive pedal or a distortion pedal can definitely help you out in those situations here to get you those same levels of gain stages at somewhat lower volumes. So before we move on to the 100 watt amplifier, make sure you hit the like button, ring the bell, and subscribe to our channel. It'll keep you up to date on future videos. Finally, onto the Badlander 100, the 100 watt amplifier here. Now, with an amplifier of this wattage, there's a couple of things to think about here as well. It may be too loud for some of you at home, especially if it doesn't have a master volume circuit like this one does. Some of these new amplifiers like the Mesa here, we have direct recording capabilities, so you can still record at home, no problems. It also might be too loud for smaller gigs and, you know, stage volumes in general if it's a non-master volume. And then, you know, sometimes just the whole, you know, philosophy of driving tubes, driving speakers in general, you want to have a bigger room for this type of wattage usually. Luckily, with these amps, like I said before, you can mess around with the wattage and go from, you know, half power down to 20 watts. They could be a little heavy too, because now we've got a bigger transformer for that power section. So it's not easy to load up, but the sonic goodness is second to none. We have 4 EL34s pushing the power section. We had 2 pushing the 50 watter. Maximum headroom, a major plus for all of you out there that are using pedals for your primary distortion and overdrive tones. Now plenty of power on tap for that big low end push. You've got low mids coming through now. You even have smoother highs with the power section like this. Some amps even have half power switches if needed. Now this one's cool because you can go 100, 50 and then down to 20, so you're not missing anything if you want to play in the bedroom, or if you have a medium-sized gig, or then all the way out to those bigger stages. So I'm going to do this for us right now. I'm going to play each one of these amplifiers back to back. I'm going to stick to pretty much the same riff for the clean and distorted parts so we can get a really good idea. I want you to leave your comments below on what you thought was the best. And before we get to that, remember all these items that are in this video that I'm using and playing are in the description. The links are there. They can take you straight to our website and you can check out specs, pricing, and availability. Chances are you now know what amp wattage you need. And if you're thinking about a 25 watt amp, go ahead and watch our 25 watt amp buyer's guide video. Thanks for watching.